Good morning, students. So, this is the classification of living organisms. Let us continue this chapter. So, quick recap, like classification of organisms. What is classification of organisms? Arranging organisms into groups based on similarities and differences. Okay, so arranging organisms into groups and subgroups based on what? Some of the similarities and differences also. And what is the purpose of classification? For convenience, easy to study, and to show relationships among various groups of organisms, and to show the evolution of organisms for simple to complex forms of life. So these are the purpose of classification. So this is the group of classifications, that is kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus and species. So this is actually classification. We have already gone through the kingdoms, right? So in the kingdom there are 5 kingdoms. So some of the scientists proposed some systems according to this classification, that is Ernest Haeckel proposed adding a 3rd kingdom. So already Aristotle added 2 kingdoms, that is plants and animals, plant and animalia. So here Ernest Haeckel proposed adding a 3rd kingdom, that is Protista. Okay, and Robert Whittaker expanded the classification system to 5 kingdoms. So finally Whittaker, scientist, expanded this classification system to 5 kingdoms. Okay, organisms were placed in these kingdoms based on type of cell. Okay, so organisms classified based on what? Type of cell and complexity of the cell and type of nutrition. So these 3, based on these 3, organism classification has been done, and all prokaryotes were placed in the Monera kingdom. And prokaryotes, so what is prokaryotic cell means? There will be no definite nucleus. Okay, so that such organisms are kept under what? Prokaryotes. So those all prokaryotes were placed in the Monera kingdom. So see here, organisms without a membrane bound nucleus. So there is a nucleus in the cell, right? So that nucleus doesn't have nuclear membrane. So that such organisms without a membrane bound nucleus, so such organisms kept under Monera kingdom. Okay, so kingdom classification is done finally by Robert Whittaker. So this is what the classification. Next, see, this is a systematic classification. First Carolus Linnaeus done plant and animal kingdom, and Ernest Haeckel, he added Protista kingdom, and Copeland, he is one of the scientists. Copeland added kingdom Monera, and Robert Whittaker added kingdom fungi, and Carl Woese, so he divided kingdom Monera. Okay, kingdom Monera is there, right? He divided this kingdom Monera into Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. Okay, fine. So see, these are the 5 kingdoms. Kingdom classification of living organisms are this: organisms and prokaryotes, that is all prokaryotes come under Monera, and eukaryotes kept placed like unicellular and multicellular. Okay, so unicellular, again under unicellular means all unicellular organisms come under Protista, and in the Protista it depends upon the having cell wall, means with cell wall or without cell wall. So based on that, again it is divided into 2, fungi and plantae. So do not perform photosynthesis here, so those organisms come under fungi, and able to perform photosynthesis organisms come under plantae. And here eukaryotes again multicellular. Okay, so in this without cell wall, the multicellular organisms without cell wall, so those are all organisms are come under animalia. Okay, so now let us watch some of the videos for better understanding.
Chapter these in detail according to geographic regions, food ingestion, defense, etc. Ingestion means taking in food. Defense means to fight against enemy. While adapting, many differences are observed in the organisms of same species too. According to 2011 census, around 87 million species of living organisms are found on the earth, including land and sea. To study such a vast number, it was essential to divide them into groups. So groups and subgroups were created, considering the similarities and differences among the living organisms. So this process of dividing living organisms into groups and subgroups is called biological classification. Five Kingdoms System. Robert Harding Whittaker, 1920 to 1980, was an American ecologist. In 1969, he divided living organisms into 5 groups. For this classification, Whittaker considered following criteria. 1. Complexity of cell structure. Prokaryotic and eukaryotic. 2. Complexity of organisms. Unicellular or multicellular. Mode of nutrition. Plants, autotrophic, photosynthetic. Autotrophic means organisms that prepare their own food. Fungi, saprophytic, absorption from dead organisms. Saprophytes are organisms that obtain food from dead organisms. Animals, heterotrophic and ingestive. Heterotrophic are organisms that obtain their food from other living organisms. 3. Lifestyle. Plants, producers. Animals, consumers. Fungi, decomposers. 4. Phylogenetic relationship. Prokaryotic to eukaryotic, unicellular to multicellular. Let's have a look at this figure. 5 Kingdom system of classification. Living organisms are classified into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes includes unicellular organisms, which are included in kingdom Monera. Eukaryotes are unicellular organisms or multicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms are included in kingdom Protista. Multicellular organisms includes kingdom Fungi, where cell wall is present but organisms can't perform photosynthesis. Multicellular organisms also include kingdom Plantae, where cell wall is present and organisms can perform photosynthesis. Multicellular organisms also include kingdom Animalia, where there is no cell wall. Kingdom 1. Monera. Try this activity. Take a small drop of curd or buttermilk on a clean glass slide. Dilute it with a little water. Carefully keep a cover slip. Observe it under high power of compound microscope. What did you see? Moving small rod-like microbes are lactobacilli bacteria. All type of bacteria and blue-green algae are included in the kingdom Monera. Characteristics of Monera. 1. The entire organisms are unicellular. 2. They may be autotrophic or heterotrophic. 3. These are prokaryotic cells without distinct nucleus or cell organelles. Kingdom 2. Protista. Activity: prepare a temporary mount of 1 drop of pond water on a glass slide. Observe it under low power and high power of microscope. You will find some motile microbes with irregular shape. These are amoebae. Characteristics of Protista: 1. Protista are single-celled organisms with well-defined nucleus enclosed in a nuclear membrane. 2. They have pseudopodia or hair-like cilia or whip-like flagella for locomotion. 3. Autotrophs, example, Euglena, volvox, contain chloroplast. 4. Heterotrophs, example, amoeba, paramecium. Kingdom 3. Fungi. Activity: take a moist piece of bread or bhakri and keep it in a container with lid for 2 to 3 days. After 2 to 3 days, a fine cotton thread like tuft is found growing on the surface of the bread. Tuft means a bunch or collection of threads. Prepare a temporary mount of few threads from this culture and observe it under the microscope. Characteristics of fungi: 1. These are non-green, eukaryotic, heterotrophic organisms. 2. Most of them are saprotrophs. They feed upon decaying organic matter. 3. Their cell wall is made up of tough and complex sugar called chitin. 4. Some fungi are thread-like and many nuclei are present in the cytoplasm. 5. Examples: baker's yeast, aspergillus, that is fungus on corn, penicillium, mushrooms. Though many systems of classification are introduced after the Whitakers, his 5-kingdom system is widely accepted.
Five-kingdom classification of organisms. Objective: to learn the 5-kingdom classification of living organisms. In 1969, ecologist Robert Harding Whittaker divided all living organisms into 5 categories, commonly referred to as the 5-kingdom classification. Kingdom Monera consists of the most primitive life forms found on Earth. These organisms are usually microscopic and unicellular, meaning they are single-celled. They have no nucleus within their cytoplasm. Bacteria, Archaebacteria, and Cyanobacteria are all members of Kingdom Monera. Kingdom Protista is next. The organisms within this kingdom are also unicellular, but they have a nucleus. Cells of this type are referred to as eukaryotes. Most members of this kingdom can, like plants, undergo photosynthesis and produce their own food, and like animals, will have locomotory structures. Most Protista are aquatic and include diatoms, algae, Euglena, and protozoans such as amoeba, paramecium, and plasmodium. Kingdom Mycota, also called Kingdom Fungi, includes fungi such as yeast, mushrooms, and molds. The body of fungus is made of long, thread-like structures called hyphae. Its members can be free-living, parasitic, or symbiotic. The 4th most complex kingdom is Kingdom Metaphyta, also referred to as Kingdom Plantae, and includes multicellular plants with eukaryotic cells, means they have a nucleus. The cells of this kingdom will contain a cellulose cell wall and a green pigment called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll aids in photosynthesis, a process during which plants make their own food by utilizing sunlight. Kingdom Plantae comprises all plants, including herbs, shrubs, and trees. Finally, we reach the kingdom with the most complex organisms, kingdom Metazoa or kingdom Animalia. It includes animals which are multicellular organisms. The cells of these organisms will be eukaryotic, and although they do not have a cell wall, they do have a cell membrane. All members of this kingdom have tissues and organs. Animals are heterotrophic, meaning they depend on other living things for food. Kingdom Animalia includes animals without bones such as the earthworm, insects such as the mosquito and cockroach, and animals with bones such as fish, lizards, birds, cows, and humans. Summary: the Five Kingdom classification was proposed by Robert Harding Whittaker in 1969. According to the Five Kingdom classification, all organisms can be divided into the categories of Monera, Protista, Mycota, Metaphyta, or Metazoa.
Thank you for watching. Have a good day.